This episode of the WP Minute is brought to you by OmniSend. Do you sell stuff online? Then you need to meet OmniSend, the powerful yet refreshingly intuitive email and SMS tool that helps you make $73 for every dollar spent. OmniSend is that good and effective. You probably know the struggles of investing in digital ads with no guarantee it'll bring money back into your pocket. Use OmniSend and you won't have to find creative ways to make your audience notice you. You just talk straight to them. Use OmniSend pop-ups to build a contact list, then send campaigns directly to people who already want to hear from you. Automate everything with OmniSend. Just set it up once, sit back, and watch those sales roll in. If this sounds too good to be true, check it out at omnisend.com. Visit omnisend.com. Tell them thanks for sponsoring the WP Minute. Mark Szymanski, welcome back to the WP Minute.
Uncle Matt, it's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. It's been a while, but
it has been a while. There's today's topic. We're going to be talking, hopefully, a little bit about AI and my exploration with coding with AI, like getting a little bit more serious about it. I saw you put up a video. I almost trolled you on that video. I'll save that for a later conversation. So you put out a video using AI to code a plugin, so I'm excited to hear more about that. And of course, I'll link it up in the show notes. This time, instead of me leading, I'm just as lost as you are. So this is going to be an interesting conversation, right? Usually I'm here coaching you through something, helping you understand something. I'm just as lost as you are with AI, maybe even more so. And I'm kind of interested to talk about both of our experiences and maybe what we're up to with it, if that's cool with you.
It's always great to chat with you, brother. I just want to say right off the top, I know we were talking in the green room before this, that I've only known you for, I can't remember when our anniversary is knowing each other, but it's been a year or just around a year. And you've gone in that time from complete disdain for AI to now realizing that it's coming, it's here. It's going to continue to get a little more interesting, and you've had a chance to look at it a little deeper. And now, as you're saying off camera, you're basically a senior developer, So.
I feel like a senior developer, but the code output is probably abysmal.
We definitely need to dig into that. Yeah, we definitely need to dig into that.
So let's talk about sort of giving up the reins to AI and like where my thoughts are, these days. I still think it's just a really good assistant right now. It is replicating. So I've been using Claude. I've been using Claude largely over the last, 6 months. It's how I shape a lot of my show notes for the podcast episodes that I put out. Really, that's what I use it for mostly. And it's been fine for that, right? It's been okay for that. These are things that are, low value. I just need concise. I need speed and efficiency, and that's where Claude and its recent iteration of its LLM has been really great, 3.5 or whatever it was, as of this recording. But anything else that I was trying to have it do on the things that I was looking for, like even analyzing data. Throwing a spreadsheet at it and asking it certain questions. And I'd say even like 6 months ago when I started getting into it, at least with Claude, asking it to code some stuff for me, it just wasn't really working for me. And fast forward 6 months, I've made a lot more headway, probably because the tools are getting better. There is one tool that I started to use, which is like literally life-changing, which I just discovered over the weekend. But all of this is to say is like, it still is just doing the things I'm asking it to do. Writing words is doing good. Writing code seemingly is doing great because the shit that I'm building is working. Mm-hmm. But it's not really helping me or guiding me if I'm making the right decisions. In other words, there still has to be a layer of human interaction with this stuff, which I think anyone taking it serious will know that. And certainly if you're doing it for your business, like if you're in marketing and you're trying to like make blog posts and pages for customers or even write code for your WordPress website, I think at the end of the day, like you're still going to need to know what the hell you're doing and understand the concepts. right now I'm totally lost with what I'm doing. I just keep smashing the prompts and it keeps giving me code. I try it, it works, or it doesn't, and then I ask it to do it again, and then I just move on to the next step. It's the worst way of doing it. It's like totally unoptimized. I'm burning oil. Like I am the world's problem with greenhouse gases right now because I am making NVIDIA CPUs or NVIDIA GPUs just go nuts with the code that I'm trying to write. There's no optimization on my side. Does that make sense? Like I feel like it's still not there to like just completely solve the world's problems.
That is a really good example of probably where I would say most of the world is with these tools right now. I want to make some quick disclaimers and maybe just kind of continue to set the scene a little bit. The first disclaimer that I'm going to make, I think I can speak for both of us when we say that we don't know how this stuff works technically at all. We can pseudo describe how it works, right? It's basically just like they somehow coded something that went across the internet, so to speak, all the language data that we have, and basically built kind of like a little bit of a language model. We could think of it as almost like a working brain, but it doesn't really expand too much on things. I feel like we're maybe getting there, but it doesn't really expand on things. It's really just like a model of data that it can pull from and accurately kind of like again, pseudo feel like a person that you're talking to or something like that. It's way better than a Google search in a lot of ways because it has all that data and it can express it back to you. It's kind of like talking to a person. And for people that are completely removed from technology, it's very new and very interesting and very cool. Once you play with it a little bit, you realize kind of what's going on. You realize some of the limitations and all that sort of stuff. But that's a big disclaimer. The other big disclaimer that I feel like that I can kind of say or set the scene here for, as of November of 2024, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, there's a ton of other ones obviously out there. None of them are, this is I think the big part in what you're kind of describing in the beginning. They're not magic. They're not mind readers. They're not independent like thinkers in any way. They are literally just assistants for the most part. The best way that, and the way that I feel like in the last like month or two, I've really like stepped up my prompt engineering or just my utilization of these tools. And the mindset change that I had was like, this isn't magic. This is like if I was like a senior marketing director or a senior developer or whatever, this is my junior sitting next to me. And I can be like the manager or more of the director, and they can do some of the work. They're not going to be able to do the whole work. It's actually kind of funny. I've thought about this many times, and I'm like, I don't have a extensive background in corporate environment, but it's almost kind of like that. It can just take the place a little bit of the less senior. I'm not saying that we should like get rid of junior developers and stuff. I'm just saying like that's the level of capability that this stuff has. But like you said, it has to be directed by somebody. Kind of currently, it's not really there yet, at least the way that most people use it. And again, the biggest disclaimer of all is this just started a few years ago max. So we are extremely early to this, and that's why I'm making some of the content, because I know this is where it's headed. Like we're just going to keep getting crazier with this.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with my brother who's been using ChatGPT for a little while, and he uses it much more for coding stuff. And I talked to him a couple of weeks ago about this, and he was saying like, "Hey man, this is changing the world. This is going to be totally. This is really going to make things weird over the next couple of years of how people are, just doing anything on the web, whether it's your search to creating content to writing code to interacting with other sites." And I agree with him, but I think at the top of this stuff, I feel like we're in the housing bubble. Or like a couple of years ago during COVID when like money was free and everyone was just like getting mortgages. It was like 2%. You could do all this stuff and money was just out there. I feel like we're in that mode right now with AI where this stuff is still too cheap. Like $20 a month to do what I'm doing, I can't see that sustaining, right? And I think what we're looking at is in the near future, a lot of these sites either just like constantly ramping up the price like we see with freaking streaming services with everything, right? Because they're burning cash and power, literally. And inevitably, there'll be some major corporation needs to win, as it always does. And we're going to start to see like the tightening of like what's available at what cost. So the way I see it is all these guys, Claude, ChatGPT, those are the only two I really use. I don't use Gemini or anything else really. But those two are just going to be like, all right, we're done. Like the free ride is over. It's either now minimally $100 a month, $200 a month. Like what's the pressure point where people will pay up to? Or you're just not going to get all this new cool shit that you're getting now for $20 a month. And that's really that's when things will change, I think, dramatically with like who has access to what. Like what is your best AI and can you afford to use it? I think is where we're headed. It's not going to be like this commodity like we're accessing today. I mean, could be wrong, but that's the way I see it.
Could be. I wish I knew who it was, and if I find the video again, we can link it below. But there was a video, it was just a short, like a 1 or 2, 3 minute video where this guy was saying that around the time that OpenAI, did they go private or public? I can't, whatever they did there, like
they had like a weird nonprofit at one point, sort of like this Mullenweg and automatic stuff. Like you're just like, what?
What happened there? But so around that time, somebody was in this video that I saw, like kind of like it was. I wish I could remember the argument entirely, but basically they said that they're not worried about basically what you described there because everybody and their mother. It was so weird how this happens. Like we heard the word AI, we saw ChatGPT, and then basically overnight everyone started implementing these things. And it's strange how that happens. Sometimes it's like you need one person to just be like, "Oh, I figured it out," and then somehow, even though you couldn't figure it out for many years, now everybody is releasing their thing where they figured it out. I guess just reverse engineering or whatever. But because we're seeing that and all these things are cheap, they're thinking that everything is just going to continue to be cheap. Now, again, certainly at certain points, there's going to be more developments and maybe they'll be like more expensive, but then they'll come down in a more commoditized thing. I just don't think that this version of AI is ever really going to be like expensive because it's already cheap and it doesn't do anything completely groundbreaking. Like it's definitely a big shift, but it's not like you can just tell it to do something like, you know, we think about, I don't know if you've seen, obviously you've heard of Tesla and the cars and everything like that and everything it can do, but those are still like a premium-ish product. I don't know if you saw the Tesla bots, just like that they, showed like that level of stuff is, I feel like AI, I don't know, 2.0, 3.0, whatever they call it, whatever they're going to dub that, that's going to be the next thing. Once it starts moving into like hardware, I feel like, and physical items that are going to like actually enhance your life, like more physically rather than just the stuff that we can do digitally. That's when the world's really going to change. Like, cause everybody's going to see that. Like when you see robots walking around and things, it's like literally iRobot from that Will Smith movie. That's going to be wild. But,
I agree. And I think we're missing this layer right now. And I want to talk about our experiences like coding in a moment, but, we're missing this like connected layer. So like what would AI be really great for right now? Well, I want it to look at my to-do list. I want it to prioritize it based on like what I've prioritized in the past. I want it to, recommend what my next steps are, right? To improve my productivity, right? Because, getting things done, like, you have this to-do list. It's like, write the blog post and you're like, okay, like, where do I start with this? Like, I want smart intelligence to like look at my list, break it down, and then start to prompt me and say, here's what you should do next. Like these are, but it's not gonna, there's no AI to do that. And then you're just siloed into one.
Let me stop you there for a second though. First question and then there's a follow-up. Do you think it can't do that right now? Do you believe that it can't, like from your experience, or do you believe that you just don't have the tooling or you don't know where to go
I just don't think that, I don't think that tooling exists. Like I don't want to give up my Todoist app. I want it to work with it. And, we've seen some of these things like, I don't know if folks that are just listening, I'll try to find it and link it up. But I know Claude launched some new experimental thing. I don't think it's generally available yet, but it'll control your computer to do things. Like that's getting to the next level where like, okay, so now I can tell Claude, hey, prune my to-do list, open up my email, start responding to that stuff. But I still think that's so far away. And then do you really trust, back to that human interaction layer, like, do you trust the code that you're deploying to your server? Like, you're going to spot check it before you do that. And are you going to trust it to manage your to-do list? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, once it gets incorporated into that layer, yeah, I mean, I think productivity we're going to see a few years of like, wow, this is immense productivity. But then what do the next few years after that look like, where, it's starting to do things for you and you're like, holy shit, like, do I get paid the same? Because of these efficiencies? I don't know. That's why, again, shout out to my brother. I think he's looking at it going, things are going to get weird. But anyway, let's just talk about our experiences with coding. And I'll start. So I have this idea for this web app, and it's not even like something I'm making generally available. It's more of like a tool for myself. But I want it to operate as a web app. One, because I want the challenge, but two, like there's other ways that I can extend it and do some other things. But anyway, the point is, I was just like, all right, I'm going to get more serious about it. Let me see if I can figure this stuff out, because Claude 3.5 came out and I heard it was great for coding. So my first experience is just dump all these thoughts into Claude. Here's the idea. Here's what I want you to build. I had some direction. I asked it a few things because I do have sort of a network operating background. So I was like, let's compare this to running on an AWS stack versus a Cloudflare stack. I've heard some great things about Cloudflare's efficiencies. I just don't know if it's as mature. So I asked it to like compare and contrast some of this stuff. And I ended up going the Cloudflare path because I just didn't want to use AWS for this. I don't even know if that's the right thing. So that's problem number one. I'm asking AI to like give me advantages of both of these technical stacks. It said, Cloudflare is the most efficient. Okay, so great. So I decided to go with that. And then I just started dumping the ideas and like just hammering it with like the questions and what I need it to do. And the first major lesson that I learned was these interfaces. You go to whatever it is, claude.ai, chat.openai.com. These interfaces, you just dump stuff into it, and it is just like this huge pool that you're just throwing stuff into. And what I found with Claude was I just started burning all of the tokens. I'm a pro $20 a month user, but I would reach my limit in like an hour of asking it questions and having it code for me. So I found myself talking to it, and the answers it was giving me was like, it's guiding me. It's like saying, here's what you should do next. And then it would prompt me and say, well, do you want to extend these features? Do you want more clarity? Like, and I'd be talking to it. I'm like, yeah, man, give me more clarity, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So it would give me these answers and extend upon it. But it was just so much so fast that I was burning the tokens. And then it would just say, hey, you can't use 3.5 until whatever, 2 p.m. It'd be like a 3 or 4 hour window. And I'd have to like shut my laptop and be like, fuck, I can't talk to this thing anymore. Right. But I could go to 3 or whatever it's called. But the answers were just so vastly different. The experience was so different to like ask it code, and it didn't know like where it left off with my other conversation. So that was super frustrating. But the first lesson I learned was you still have to be dialed in. Otherwise, you're just, at least with Claude anyway, you're going to burn through those tokens, just asking a zillion questions and having it talk to you.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
No, yeah. And if you've tried Claude, I would recommend you taking a look at it. But what Matt's describing there, what you're describing, it's entirely like that. So I made a couple of videos maybe 2 months ago at this point where I was just diving into this concept of literally maybe my first times using Claude and trying to code. When I did that, I had that exact same experience that you had. I was like, what the fuck? I have all these questions still, and like I can't do this until tomorrow or whatever. I'm not sure if there's a way around that. I don't know if you can buy more tokens. One thought there, though, is that whatever you're spending to get that information, you absolutely would have spent way more money trying to get somebody to do it for you.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
sure.
So, I mean, just to keep that in perspective. But again, it's your point is completely taken. Like, that's kind of annoying where we're at right now. I do think it's probably a bit of, again, where we're at right now, so to speak, with, again, being extremely early. But the fact that you can do it, we could stick on that, and that's like the main piece. What I've learned from my second go around with this video that I just posted today, as of recording this. It's like an hour and a half long video, and I did it specifically in two ways. The first part of it was just kind of me explaining what I was doing and the finished product, and then the back half hour or whatever is me literally in Claude, like playing around building it. So there's a bunch of little gold nuggets in there, but a couple of the ones that I found was, if you're gonna do this, you have to realize, like, you have to continuously get better at being a prompt engineer. You have to understand that, like, you have to give it all that information. You have to ask it to ask you questions, like prompt it to ask you questions, and particularly one at a time too, so you can just like kind of have a conversation. There's a little bit of stuff in there about like, saving tokens and all that. But the first time I did it, this is a really big one. The first time I did it, when it'll give you, let's say you're just making a simple WordPress plugin. So it codes a bunch of stuff for you. It outputs the files and the nice little artifacts feature thing, so you can kind of see it and everything like that. You can download the files. You can save them into on your computer directories and all that. If you ask it to change something or it has to rewrite it, I think what it does on purpose is only gives you part of the file back.
Sure.
Because I think that's just less tokens. It doesn't want you to rewrite everything. I was telling it, no, I want you to rewrite the whole thing for me so I can just copy and paste it. Not really a good idea, because you're going to burn a shit ton more tokens.
That's what I was doing too. I was just
this is what I mean. Like, you have to be the senior developer and it's the junior developer. Like, you're still working. You're just guiding it and it's doing a lot of this stuff. So that's one thought in my mind. We could talk about, like, is the code good or not? I think that if you're doing something relatively ubiquitous, it's going to be pretty good, because it's not, unless it's hallucinating, which hopefully you can kind of tell maybe sometimes, but I don't know. You definitely probably want to get the shit vetted. Let me just say that. But the one other piece of it is, you mentioned where you're just kind of dumping everything into a pool. The one cool thing that I found with Claude is it has a projects feature. I don't know what plan it's on or whatever, but that kind of like, where we're not at yet, and kind of there, kind of not there, is think about like these LLMs of having like a big language model that they've scraped the internet and looked through all the data and everything like that. Okay, that's the whole LLM. What I want though, and I've tried this and I haven't made a video or anything too much yet. What I want to do is, the LLM doesn't know what I want in this project, or maybe like about me or my business or whatever. The secondary piece of this, and people have been doing this on, like, if you've ever seen somebody do like a personal AI chatbot where they basically recreate themselves so people can ask questions and answer like what we all should be doing. This is a really good piece of content actually that I should write. But we all were like building our Facebook pages or our LinkedIn's or our websites or our blogs. What we need to be doing now is like building our own personal LLM, where it's like everything about us. So at any point, like, we could call in or somebody else could call into that and like get the answer. Because that is like, I feel like maybe 1.5 or 1.75 area of where we need to go with some of this stuff. Because then if you can do that and you can create that, your own little segmented thing there, then now you've added more information to it, kind of like how you're doing, right? Like, you threw all that information in there. And if you could silo that, you could always come back to that. I know they do it in the chat formats, but the projects thing is a separate thing. You could always come back to that, and you could always continue that piece of it. So a lot of stuff there, but that's been my experience. A couple little tips that I've found so far in my short journey.
Yeah, I purposely started in a project. Like, when I got more serious about building this app, I started in a Claude project. And I still find it lacking in that it especially when you hit I have to just get better at understanding like how this stuff works. But if you start a chat, let's say with 3.5 Sonnet, I believe is what it's called. Yeah, Sonnet, which is at this point their most advanced that is accessible to average users. You start that chat, you start going down the road of like, okay, build me this script, and I'm building something, again, runs on Cloudflare. Cloudflare has workers, which is, I don't know, the way that I understand it, the way that I've always perceived it as, is like a serverless code architecture. Basically, I can run tiny, tiny, tiny little operating systems that will run these commands. So I have to build this big script that does all these API endpoints and routes and connections and all this other stuff. And if I'm chatting with it, 3.5 Sonnet, I'm improving it, I'm adding my API endpoints, I'm testing it, I'm building it, deploying it, and then I run out of tokens. and it's okay. You can't talk to me until 4 o'clock. I can't like back out to the like air quotes, back out to the projects folder and then pick up on it with like version, LLM 3.0 and say, okay, let's reference this file that we've been building over here with 3.5. And now like, let's continue building this. It has no idea on how to do that, or unless I'm just maybe not prompting it well enough. I mean, it creates the artifact. You see it. This is getting like really inside baseball here, but if you use Claude, folks who are listening, use Claude, you know what I'm talking about. You have like the previous files that it's created in the project that you can click on at any time and see, even with a name, because it gives it a name, or you can actually tell it, give it this name, and you try to reference it, it still has no freaking idea, which is one of like the most aggravating things for me. Unless their projects don't work the same as I thought they did, or it just simply has no idea because the 3.5 stuff was way more advanced. Like that. Let me backtrack. If you're asking 3.5 to code something for you, it is literally like having somebody sit alongside of you and talk to you. Like it explains everything. It asks you what you want to do next. It suggests things that you should be doing, next for like features. You're like, oh shit, I never even thought about that feature. And you're like, wow, this is amazing. And then as soon as you go to like 3, it's like the baseline one. It's just like, here's the code. It doesn't say anything else. And it's just like, shit, man, what the hell happened? You were so nice to me in this other chat. And now we got nothing. It's vastly different. And so what I started doing too is like, yes, I started to, as I understood the limitations I was running up against, I started, making the requests a little bit smaller. And then in I forget what it's called. See if I can pull it up really quick. There's instructions I think you can set. I think it's called instructions. Yeah, set custom instructions for the project. So in the upper right-hand corner in the project, it says, how should Claude respond? I said that I profiled myself. And I said, before writing a lot of code, please explain quickly what you'll be doing before I can confirm, or so I can confirm, right? So basically, don't burn those credits or tokens by writing a shitload of code. Tell me what you're going to do first, and then I'll approve it. And even that didn't work all the time. It did when I asked it bigger things, and it would like bullet point some features it might do. It would ask me. It was like hit or miss with that. And I have another one in the instructions that says, when writing code, please use good inline documentation. I'm a beginner level developer. It helps me find the areas you need me to update. Because what was happening was it would suggest those changes to the code. Like you said, instead of like writing out 800 lines of code every single time, which was a complete list of the file, it would say, just update these sections. And I'm like, fuck, I don't even know, where do I find these sections? Where the hell is that at? So I'm trying to say, look, like really document this and help me understand where it needs to go later on. So again, hit or miss with that. I wish it was a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've had similar things, and it sounds like what you're trying to achieve is probably more robust and more advanced than what I was trying to achieve in that video specifically. That was like building I think that maybe had 7 files, 8 files or something like that. So I'm not sure if there's more to it, but I mean, if you have more functionality, then your files are just getting bigger. It's more tokens, it's more decisions, it's more features, it's all that sort of stuff. But I mean, I don't know. I'm bullish on it to this point because I think it's pretty incredible what we can do so far. But all of the feedback that you're giving, I'm sure like a lot of other people have like had, and like I don't know. The thing with this is the part that confuses me the most is how you actually make something like this better. I mean, if we want to go off topic of coding, I don't know if you have more on the coding stuff specifically, but just like other use cases, I've actually found a ton of ways that I've used like Claude specifically and ChatGPT and Gemini to certain cases. Like I have a laundry list of things now just in the past 2 months that I've used this stuff for that has actually made a difference, I would say, in all of my workflows and my just thought processes and the way that I work on things.
Let me just wrap up on some of this coding stuff because So what happened next is like, here's the things I don't know. I'm way out of my league on on what I'm coding, right? It's pure JavaScript, you know, I mean, I can understand some of it now, right? Because I've literally been neck deep in it. And it's actually a great education process. It sort of like reminds me of learning WordPress all over again, which is cool, but way out of my league in terms of like what it's developing. So I found an app called Cursor. Have you run into this yet?
I've heard of it. I haven't used it yet.
Because when I was coding, like when I initially started this project, I'm like, I got to start like a whole local development environment. I haven't done that in years. And when I did it for WordPress, WordPress is so easy. Like it's so, I guess it's the good and bad of WordPress because it's so archaic. It's MySQL, PHP, and HTML, right? And CSS. And of course now JavaScript. But the essence of it is like you can get a local environment up pretty damn easy. Whereas with like this stuff, package installers, NPM install, like you're building all this stuff, then you have to deploy it. You have to do all of this stuff to get this thing going. And then what are you coding in? So hey Claude, what's everyone using for coding? Right. And they're like, oh, VS Code. So, okay. So I started using VS Code. And then my mind is blowing up because I'm like, man, I don't even know how to set, like, then I just feel way out of my league because I'm like, this thing isn't set up right. I don't even know if I'm optimized right. Am I doing this correctly? And then I started hitting that wall of Claude. Now, over the weekend, I started making a lot of headway. Things were working. I built my what's known as the Cloudflare worker, and it was working. And I could send data to these APIs. It would talk to other APIs and send me the information back that I needed. I was like, okay, I'm making headway. And then I was like, okay, now I need to make this a front end because I can't just do everything through the terminal. I need to be able to manage this in a web browser. And that's when the freaking wheels fell off because I was just like, hey, Claude, build me a React app that connects up to all these APIs that can do this stuff. And it was just a shitstorm. I mean, just 48 hours of like trying to just figure out how to deploy this to Cloudflare. Is the problem with Cloudflare? I don't know. Is the problem with my code? Probably, right? So there's all this stuff happening. And I found Cursor. And I don't even remember how I found it. I think I was like, I need to find an alternative to VS Code because I just felt like, am I just using the wrong tool? Like, I just can't do this stuff anymore. And then I found Cursor, and Cursor integrates directly with Claude. And the magic is it's not your tokens, it's their tokens. So I could just freaking pound away at this thing and just be like, here's the 900 lines. Look at it. Tell me what's wrong. All right, give me the update. Here's another 900 lines. Like, give me another update. And that has solved it dramatically. And basically what it has allowed me to do is in Cursor. Now this is, anyone who's like a proper dev is like freaking out, flipping tables right now. But I ask it to do something. It shows me the code like I was doing in my Claude web browser. And instead of me copying and pasting it into the file, you just say, apply it. And it writes it right in the file. Right? Wow. So I'm just like, oh yeah, all day, man. Like I just said, yes. Like this is all the code I want. And I finally got to a point where now I'm not using React anymore. I'm using another framework called Svelte. Which is like a pure JavaScript play on it. It's supposed to be more efficient, yada, yada. I don't know. I'm like watching YouTube videos while I'm coding. I am.
You're not coding. You're not coding.
I'm coding, man.
You're prompting.
I'm coding.
You're prompting.
I'm coding. And just the way that I see it is I'm the guy with the idea. We're working together on this. It's a partnership. Me, Claude, and Cursor. And I finally get to a point where I've launched the app. It's the very basic iterations of it are working. But Cursor is really the thing that made me, turn the corner, which has allowed me to now I use. So instead of like working with like some of like the real inside, like if a big issue comes up, right? Like I'm talking about, and I'm asking it to like help me style the front end. So instead of doing that even in Cursor, because you get this tiny little window, literally, I'll start asking ChatGPT and Claude what their recommendations are. So now it's like I have two different people in front of me. Big question, right? Like a big question, like should I use Tailwind or should I use like some other CSS framework or whatever? And I'll ask them both, see what the answers are, and then I'll aggregate that and then bring that into Cursor and be like, okay, here's where I think I should be going with this. What do you think? It'll give me the answer. And man, I'm a single person enterprise is what I am. Okay. I'm going to be launching so many apps, dude. It's not even going to be funny. Okay. All I have to say is WordPress is in trouble.
WordPress is in trouble. Yeah. Oh my God. Man, people are gonna be so mad about this.
No, it does help me really appreciate like what WordPress has. Like really, like even like I'm looking at it now and I'm like, holy shit, there's a lot of like legacy stuff here, and I can understand why people who are on the cutting edge look at WordPress and go, that's a joke. Like, look at that dinosaur over there. But at the same time, as an end user, like imagine trying to do, like imagine, oh yeah, AI is going to change all this stuff. You can just make your own WordPress. Ain't going to happen. I mean, not anytime soon, and not to what you can do with WordPress, but it does also make me appreciate like what we have as like this little bottled up application that is WordPress.
I got a lot of thoughts. The first one I have to say though is that I didn't realize it took less than a year. It took a week for you to be completely bullish on AI and be like literally a senior developer. That's amazing. I don't know if anybody's ever done that in a week.
I'm going to quickly go back to the CEO level in a moment, but I'm just like, once I figure it out.
Smart. Yeah. Yeah. The one random question that I have that I don't know if we can really answer, but it would be good to get other people from the community to answer this is, we are not developers. I wouldn't classify myself. I don't think you'd classify yourself as developers, right? Like we know code here and there just from being around. We know what stuff does, but we've never sat for 8 hours multiple times per week, per day, per year to like actually develop software or anything like that. We know enough to be dangerous, and now with Claude, we know enough to be really dangerous. So I'm wondering if we're that camp, so to speak, like we're that archetype, and we see this and we're like, oh shit, we could like build our own apps and stuff like that, or like our own plugins, and it's like we know the dangers kind of, if we're being honest with ourselves, but we're trying it because it's interesting and we're trying to learn. I wonder if software developers, the other archetype, if they look at these things and they're leveraging, I wonder if like that what you just described there with like Claude and Cursor, I don't know this enough, and I'm sure there's videos and people doing this stuff, but I don't know if our software developers, you would think that if you put that into a software developer's hands, like the Copilot from GitHub or whatever, there's tons of them now. If you gave that to somebody, like, are they just like flying at like Mach 10 now?
Yeah, I think that's where the biggest wins are, for sure.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like, the thing is, it's not like only we have these tools, they have the tools too, so they're not in trouble or anything like that. I don't think that by any means. And they still know what they're doing. So it's like they can go faster and they know what they're doing. So it's like if they run into the problems that you're having and I'm having, then it's like, oh, I know exactly what to do. Boom, boom, boom. I know exactly what to tell it to do, and they're off to the races.
Yeah. I think that's where Cursor is supposed to really win. I'm using it from like its chat features, I feel like are supposed to be just an assist, literally, whereas I'm using it to code the whole thing. From all the stuff that I've been watching and listening to people talk about how like amazing Cursor is because it has like this autocomplete feature, which if you know what you're doing, speeds it up like that 10x level, where you can start, like if you know the code, you can start writing the code, and then it'll start auto-completing the code it thinks is going to come next.
Oh, wow.
So I don't even know what I'm doing. So I'm asking it to write stuff for me. And then that's how I'm using it. Whereas like, man, if you know what you're doing, this thing is, puts you on Mach 10. And then if you really have a question, then you can ask AI. So yeah, like it really helps that kind of person for sure.
Yeah. I mean, just in general with the coding stuff, I love that these tools are available. It's awesome that they're available to anybody. I'm sure some people are going to be like, well, you shouldn't be coding your own stuff. It's like, I mean, I don't know if you want to play around and you understand the risks. Like in that video, I say like, I'll give you guys this code, but do not hold me liable. Like this is your own, use at your own risk. Like it's there, but I don't know, it's got an encryption class for like the API keys, but like other than that, like I have no idea what holes you could poke in this thing or anything like that. So I would always just say exercise caution there. But it is pretty incredible what we're able to do, and seemingly in such a short time, from when we went from like pretty much everything being like hand coded, so to speak, to now we can get so much further, so much faster. Us
Yeah.
and people doing this professionally, it's pretty insane.
Yeah. So what other areas are you using it in outside of content or coding?
Yeah. So the other area would be like, so we're not coders, right? Like we said, but we are content creators. And I think that like you and I are probably similar. We're similar in that realm. So it's like, we know ways and we know the hangups and the limitations that creating content, right? We don't really know the software side. So if we switch to this content side, it's like, how can we possibly speed this up? So I'm going to think of a bunch of different ways. The first way, this is like, again, some of these are like small wins because they're not like groundbreaking things, but they're really like actually pretty awesome. Like if you stack them all up. First thing is, okay, so we record YouTube videos. I'm not going to do it in order because I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll just go from thinking about these. The first one is like we record YouTube videos, right? And I like to put chapters in all my YouTube videos. I was literally doing this. Like I would watch the whole video back and put the chapters in. I don't have to fucking do that anymore. Like I upload the video. I wait, maybe sometimes it's right away depending on the length of the video. I took that whole hour and a half script and ChatGPT, I tried to do this with ChatGPT but a while ago. It's not as good. Claude is way better with like pasting things in, and maybe it's just the new model now, like more, it can just understand more. So I upload the video, I go to the bottom, show transcript, I copy that whole thing with the timestamps in it, I paste that into Claude and I say, hey, give me YouTube chapters, one-liners for it, just like formatted perfectly, and just give me chapters for these videos. And then I can even say, hey, get a little more detailed if it doesn't give me enough or how I want it to do. That saves a shit ton of time if you were going to sit there and watch all of that. And that's just a small win, like I said. So there's that. You already mentioned things like explaining. You could even say, I literally just tried this with the last couple of videos. Let's stick on that. Just from the transcript, it knows everything your video is about, right? And it's an expert at YouTube if you tell it it's an expert at YouTube. So you can get the subtitles from that. I'm sorry, you can get the chapters from that. You can tell it, give me 10 really good titles for this video based on just your knowledge of YouTube. So, and then I'm not saying like copy and paste that part. Like I just need the ideas because I'm not creative enough to think of the ideas. So like, give me the titles. I even experimented with this. I said, you already mentioned the description and stuff like that, so you could obviously get that. But I even experiment with, hey, I know you, for Claude, I know you can't generate images, okay? And we could talk about images because that's like kind of another modal of this piece that's good and bad, very hit or miss, more than text. I know you can't generate images, Claude, but can you prompt another tool to generate a really good thumbnail for this, or at least give me some ideas and stuff like that, or what a good thumbnail would be? It does it. It doesn't do it great because then I copied that. I took it over to Grok on X because I think Grok uses Flux, which is probably like one of the best image generative things now, one of them. And I put it over there, and it didn't give me great stuff, but it gave me something that like, maybe would spark a little bit. You know what I mean? But like even with text, you could kind of get some ideas for imagery and things. So those are just some of the ways like in YouTube that I've sped up and at least gave myself way more ideas for things because, those things are hard to come up with on your own.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, as an assist, it definitely helps. It still hasn't ever really knocked it out of the park for me for titles and stuff. I think it's still very baseline, but it does bring in like a different perspective. And what I'll do is like ask like, here's the type of viewer I'm hoping to watch this video, whatever it might be, freelancer, WordPress beginner, whatever it might be, the keyword is, and then like what would appeal to them, and I use that as like ideation, and other like other words, what are other words I can use that are keywords for this, all of that stuff, works great for the chapters, because I use Descript. Descript just has a chapter thing built right in, so you just click it, and it's still all AI, Chat GPT driven. But I've always found it to be a little bit more accurate because it has the whole video file, and it just does a better job. Often I'll use that, and I use Whisper AI as I think it only runs on Mac though. So Whisper AI or Whisper Transcription is what it's called on Mac. It's a Mac app. And you can just drop in your video or MP3 file or any media file, and ask it to transcribe it and then run the same commands on it. It's just like a local app. I'll use that from time to time.
Yeah. The other thing I try to do, I haven't done it as much recently, is I take the transcription because it's not great. I mean, maybe Descript already does this, but the transcript isn't great from YouTube. Like it's the words, but it's not formatted well. So like the idea would be to take that text and put it on your website so you could index that text. I'm not even sure as we move forward if that's even going to be completely necessary, because it's probably going to just, somehow get, SEO juice and ranking and any sort of indexability from like the actual words in the YouTube video at this point. But that's just another random thing. Yeah, there's a lot of trying to think of anything else that I've tried to do. I just literally hate making thumbnails, so I'm waiting for a really good thumbnail thing. I've explored some GPTs, custom GPTs for that. Yeah, I don't know. This is all kind of like very interesting and slightly kind of concerning at the same time, because like at some point, I don't know if you've experimented with 11 Labs and any sort of image, or not image, but like voice. Like you can very, very soon we're gonna be able to just like make our own stuff. Like let's just generate our own things just from all of the voice data we have of ourselves, the video data we have of ourselves, and then all of any LLM stuff that we've put together. So it is gonna get weird. I'm just hoping it doesn't get weird super soon, or we could at least capitalize on it. It's a lot of stuff.
So are you still going to build out that plugin and continue like making plugins for like sites that you're building out? Like what's the future for developing plugins for you?
I mean, so that one specifically was, I was trying to create a automated via the YouTube API, just like automatically know when I'm live on my website. And I just created like custom, it checks the YouTube API. It says, are you live or not? It gives a couple pieces of data that it pulls in, like the YouTube URL and stuff like that. And then it integrates specifically with Bricks to like use all those things with dynamic tags and conditions. Works great. Perfect. And in order to do all of that, I would have either needed to hire a developer or find a plugin that did it. So I think for very niche things like that, you're definitely probably very well off doing that. I'm thinking of, if you do like an analysis on like the ROI of doing something like that, just even personal ROI, like nothing's going to come along and like fix that right away. I would love to have a larger conversation on like where this is all going, because I love WordPress and I love websites, but I don't think we're going to be on websites for the rest of our lives necessarily. I think there's going to be some more to that, just in like the different ways that we operate with things. Because to go back to, if you think about like the Google search era versus now the AI prompting era, I don't know about you, but there have been times very recently where I have not gone to Google. I've gone to like a ChatGPT or a Claude, because I don't want to go search for an answer anymore. I want the answer to kind of like come to me. And I don't mean like I'm just going to take the answer. It's like it has all that information, so it can explain it to you in a way that you're actually asking particularly for. I'm sure you've done this. Like you go and you have a very specific problem. So then you have to search Google and you have to go through like 10 links to find like maybe what the answer is. But with now, it's like it does that step for you in a lot of ways. And the other big thing that I do, and this is one of the things I don't like about Claude just yet, but I'm sure they're going to have it. I love ChatGPT and Gemini, which is Google's, for the conversational, because I hate text, and this is a lot of reading that we're doing so far. So like I'll like actually have a conversation with it. And I'll be like, hey, what do you think about this topic? Like I'll do this in preparation for like, any sort of podcasting, debate, like live topics. Like, hey, like what do you think about like open source? Do you think that's a good thing, a bad thing, or whatever? You can kind of like get a lot of ideas and a lot of different things that you would have had to go read like a bunch of different people's opinions. But now it's aggregated all that and it's just thrown it at you. I'm not saying just take it as face value. I'm saying like you can almost do like a little mock conversation or mock debate with these things. And then you could do it from both sides too. And then you have all the perspectives, and then you can create your own perspective, and then you could, go into the content or the show or whatever with that. I mean, I've literally done that before just because of the ease of that. Like I'm just talking into my phone. Like it's so easy.
Yeah. It's certainly, it's many different ways, to use it. I was also thinking too, like while I was using Cursor, I'm like, man, if I could just talk to this thing, which it probably even has, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like if I could just like talk to this and explain what I want. But I still have a lot of like uncertainty on, what the answers are going to be, even from a, I don't know. I like to see a ton of options. I don't mind sifting through it as long as that the options I have are close to, giving me the answer. Argue if Google even still does that anymore. I don't know. But I don't mind like sifting through that stuff, but I totally get it. Like just give me the answer. I signed up for, only because Kevin Rose, from Dig Nation, he's I guess an advisor, or the VC firm that he works for is invested in Perplexity. And you could get a free year of Perplexity Pro, if you were on his email list. I've heard a lot of people talk about it, like, it's like, search results and all this stuff. And like, that's supposed to be the thing that really crushes Google. I did it for this project that I'm working on. I mean, it didn't really give me anything that Claude and ChatGPT wasn't already giving me. I mean, it's a cool interface, and I'm sure it's like if I was doing more, it would give me some better stuff. But once again, I'm just like, I'm not, I haven't tapped in to the full potential of this stuff. Because, effectively, I feel like I'm just getting started, but that's where that is.
Well, we're all just getting started, Matt. It's early.
We're all just getting started, and we're all just on the way out, all at the same time.
That is a larger topic, and I'm sure this has already happened though, kind of in history in waves. Obviously not AI related, but again, like with so many other things, I think we're just going to have to continue to. I think that if we're talking about this now, we are perhaps potentially the best position. So I'm trying to get more people, like just from this type of content, if we can get more people think about this and understanding that it's real, the hope would be that we can continue to leverage it for as much as we need to leverage it. And then we could continue to evolve and adapt to obviously fill in the gaps that like this thing, these types of things are going to do. Like there's always going to be a reason to, continue to try to innovate and do other things. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting though, regardless. Yeah, we'll see what the future holds with all of this.
It's the WP Minute, the WPMinute.com/subscribe. Still not powered by AI yet.
Yes.
Maybe someday. Hit that newsletter. I think I mentioned this to you a couple weeks ago. I switched over to ConvertKit.
That's going to be Kit. Has it already?
Or excuse me, sorry. It's just Kit now. That's right. It's just kit.com. One, because this is a semi-tangent to what we're talking about today, but everything that happened with WordPress and I've always had this feeling anyway, but like everything, especially with like WordPress and understanding like where you're doing your business, like who owns that business that you're doing business with. And I was running on MailChimp for a while. It was fine. I never really loved like making the newsletters there. But I switched to Kit because I had Nathan on the show many, many years ago, and he'll DM me every once in a while to ask a couple questions. And I was like, yeah, I'll use it. We got a new add-on for it for Gravity Forms. And so far, so good. Consolidated 2 MailChimp accounts. Was a little bit of a pain in the neck because it flagged me for like, where did you get these users from? And it's like, well, I merged 2. I had 2 different lists, my Matt Report list and my WP Minute list, and I was always mailing both. So I just consolidate into one, and it flagged a bunch of stuff. But crafting the templates there, much easier. Happier about that. So if you do receive the email and you have any feedback, hit reply on the next email that I send. Let me know what you think. Mark, what about you? What are you up to? Where can folks find you?
Just trying to double, triple, quadruple down on content on YouTube. You can just go to mjs.bio. You can sign up for my newsletter. All my social links and everything like that are there. Just trying to provide as much value as possible to you guys. So appreciate it.
Awesome stuff. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you, or you'll hear us in the next episode.